Honda isn't a company that likes to bring a variety of new models to market in the hope that one of them will stick. No, it takes a far more concentrated approach, and the HR-V has historically been one of its core models. There's a new one now, which brings an innovative new design as well as a clean hybrid powertrain. But is it any good, and is it deserving of a place in Honda's streamlined lineup? Well, we're going to find that out today. The Honda HR-V has some really interesting styling points. For instance, the smoothed out grille makes it look a little bit more like a fully electric vehicle, while we really like the full width light bar at the rear too. Plus, the integrated rear door handles make the car look very angular, and the roof rails, well, they give it a little bit of that go anywhere appeal that is so important in the crossover segment. I really like the forward section of the HR-V's cabin. The material quality is good. There are some really nice rubberized sections here. And actually these seat upholstery bits are nice and jazzy, and that just helps to lift the overall feeling of the cabin. We've also got some chrome elements, and this section here actually helps to angle the whole cabin towards the driver, which I think is quite a good feature. There's also a 9-inch touchscreen in the middle, and as we've found with some Honda cars, it's a little bit confusing and it's just a tiny bit convoluted in the way that you get through the different menus. Having said that, you can connect Apple CarPlay and then just use your smartphone, and that's a breeze to operate. At 335 litres, the boot in the HR-V is quite a bit smaller than the one you'd find in many of its competitors, and it's smaller than actually you'd find in a regular hatchback. However, that said, it's a nice low boot height and it's relatively flush, so you haven't got a big load lip to get heavier items over. However, one of the biggest inclusions is Honda's Magic Seats, and we'll take a look at those now. So in the back, you've got two options. You can either lower the seats in the conventional sense, so you've got a flat boot floor, or you can keep them upright, and then you can take the seat squab, lift that up, lock it in place, and then you can have taller items or just things that you would want to keep separate from the boot. I think it's really useful to have that flexibility, to be honest. What about when the seats are in place? What's it like inside? Well, for a relatively compact car, the level of space that you get in here is really good. And despite that roofline coming back down, headroom isn't impeded too much. And actually the level of leg and knee room that you get is really impressive. There's not too much of a hump in the middle either, but that person in the middle does have a slim seat to sit upon. So you're going to feel a little bit squashed in the back here if you're sitting three abreast. The HR-V uses the same powertrain setup as was first debuted on the recent Jazz, and it uses a 1.5 litre petrol engine which is then combined with two electric motors. Now you get around 129 brake horsepower overall, and that means a 0 to 60 time of around 10.5 seconds. So it's definitely not the most performance-focused car out there, but the name of the game here really is efficiency. But Honda says that you should get over 54 mpg, and during our time with the car, we got quite close to that during a variety of motorway and mixed driving. So efficiency is definitely the name of the game here. What is this powertrain like to interact with? Well, power is sent via a CVT gearbox, which is never the most refined, and providing you don't ask too much of the engine and the electric motors, then it is quiet and refined. But kick down, it's quite incredible the noise that this thing makes. And all that does is promote you to not press the throttle too hard and just to drive in a slightly more relaxed and, let's be honest, efficient manner. You could argue that you're getting the best out of this setup in doing so, but it does mean that when you need to join a motorway or come onto a slip road, you do feel like you're doing something wrong simply because the car is just so loud. Other than that, the general refinement is very good. It's quite firm at low speeds. But at cruise, the HR-V is very pleasant actually, and it feels like Honda has done well to isolate much of the noise from entering into the cabin. In terms of the kind of electrified driving experience, the HR-V will use its electric motors at slower speeds, so for instance when you're crawling through traffic, when you are reversing or positioning the car, and it will actually use that for far longer than you might expect a normal hybrid to do so. It feels at times like you are driving a proper electric car. The visibility is good, and despite the relatively sloping roofline, you've got good visibility out the rear of the car too. One thing I would point out is that the HRV steering is actually surprisingly weighty. It feels far sportier than you might find in some of the HRV's rivals, and with a good amount of weight to it, it makes the whole car feel very planted and direct, and I think that's a really clever move by Honda to put that in, rather than going with an overly light steering system, which although would make the car feel slightly more agile, could actually turn it into something that felt a little bit nervous. The HRV is actually a surprisingly big little car. It's hard to describe, but when you see it in pictures, it looks like a far larger car than it actually is. When you get up close to it, it's reasonably compact. And that actually transfers into the driving experience. It feels like a far larger, far more refined car than its footprint would lead you to believe. I think that's a really good feature and definitely makes this car into far more of a multi-use vehicle rather than just a hybrid that can be used exclusively around town. It's not going to fall apart when it goes on the motorway, and during our time with the car we've found that actually at a cruise it does remarkably well, and the engine and motor setup is managed intelligently enough that that electric power does come in as and when you need it, but without being so obvious that you don't get a thunk or a big collision when it switches from one to the other, and that's really good. Even though the crossover segment is pretty well populated at the moment, the Honda HR-V feels like a really welcome addition. It's got that efficiency to hand, and though the CVT gearbox is very noisy, if you drive this car in a calm and easy manner, then it's going to be a really comfortable one to live with. Like I said, the crossover segment is pretty busy at the moment, but the Honda HR-V is one that's definitely worth checking out above the competition. Now, thank you for watching this motors.co.uk new car review on the Honda HR-V. If you have liked this video, please give us a thumbs up below and let us know what you think of this car in the comments section underneath. And since you're here, please remember to subscribe to the motors.co.uk YouTube channel, hitting that bell icon so you're notified each and every time we upload a new video.